The distress signal rippled through the quantum foam of subspace, a desperate whisper in the cosmic dark. Ambassador Zelthor's three-fingered hands trembled as he transmitted the final plea from the refuge station, orbiting the dying world of Velanos Prime. Behind him, the viewport revealed a nightmare, the Carthax swarm, millions of biomechanical horrors, consuming everything in their path. To any who can hear this, Zelthor spoke into the communicator, his translator struggling to maintain composure. The Velanos system has fallen. The swarm advances. We are 3 billion souls with nowhere to run. Our ships are civilian. Our weapons are depleted. If there is anyone anywhere who possesses the strength to stand against this darkness, he didn't finish. What civilization would answer? The Galactic Council had already deemed Velanos strategically insignificant. The mighty Kronar Empire had pulled back to defend their core worlds. Even the ancient Synthesis had gone silent, retreating into their pocket dimensions. Zelthor had sent the message toward the Galactic Rim, toward the wild frontier where rumors spoke of a species so violent, so utterly unreasonable, that they'd been quarantined on their death world for their own protection. Humans. Deathworlders who drank poison for pleasure, who kept predators as companions, who had somehow survived on a planet that actively tried to kill them with weather, geology, and biology. The Council had been very clear. Never contact Earth. Humans were dangerous and unpredictable, and worst of all, they seemed to enjoy danger. Zelthor closed his eyes. Better dangerous allies than certain death. 72 hours later, they arrived. The first sign was the spatial distortion. Not the gentle fold of standard FTL travel, but something violent and aggressive. Reality seemed to tear open as massive ships dropped from what humans called jump space directly into the combat zone. No cautious approach, no preliminary scans, just instant terrifying presence. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UNS Indomitable, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the swarm's position. Around her flagship, the Terran Defense Fleet materialized. 87 warships built not for exploration or diplomacy, but for one purpose only: war. Ma'am, we're receiving multiple hails from the refugee station, her communications officer reported. They're asking who we are and they're warning us to flee. Chen allowed herself a cold smile. Tell them humanity doesn't flee. Broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command. We heard your call. We're here to help. On the refuge station, Zelthor watched in horror as the human ships accelerated toward the swarm. Didn't they understand? The Carthax had overwhelmed 6 battle fleets. Their adaptive shields and regenerating hulls made them nearly invincible. The humans were racing toward annihilation. Then the Indomitable opened fire. What emerged from the human ship wasn't the clean plasma or elegant particle beams of civilized warfare. It was something primal. Kinetic accelerators hurled tungsten rods at relativistic speeds. Nuclear-tipped missiles banned by 17 different interstellar conventions streaked through the void. And something else. Weapons that made space itself scream. The first wave of Carthax vessels simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased. The adaptive shields that had confounded Council weapons meant nothing against the sheer overwhelming violence of human ordnance. Target their regeneration nodes, Chen ordered calmly, as if discussing dinner plans. I want suppressing fire on grid sectors 7 through 12, and someone get those civilians a clear run to the jump point. On the tactical display, the swarm began to adapt, reforming their formations, preparing their bioweapons, but the humans adapted faster. Ships that should have fled after taking critical damage instead pivoted and rammed swarm vessels, their crews evacuating in the final seconds before impact. Fighters that lost weapon systems switched to ramming speed. When the swarm released their plague spores, human ships vented atmosphere to create kinetic barriers, then simply kept fighting in vacuum. Zelthor watched a human destroyer take catastrophic damage, its hull breached in a dozen places. By all logic, it should have been a derelict. Instead, it continued firing, its crew working in sealed compartments, refusing to die quietly. These humans, his aide whispered, they fight like the universe personally offended them. The battle raged for 18 hours. The swarm, which had never retreated in 3 centuries of expansion, began to withdraw. Not from defeat, they still had numerical superiority, but from something that their hive intelligence recognized on a fundamental level. These humans were willing to trade their lives at ratios that made victory meaningless. When the last swarm vessel jumped away, the refuge station erupted in celebration. 3 billion souls had been saved. But the human fleet didn't celebrate. They were already organizing rescue operations, medical teams preparing to assist the wounded, engineers ready to repair damaged infrastructure. Admiral Chen accepted Zelthor's vid call personally. The ambassador saw a woman with silver-streaked hair, eyes that had seen too much death, and a jaw set with absolute determination. "Admiral Chen," Zelthor began, his voice thick with emotion, "you came. Despite everything, despite what the Council said about your species. You came." Chen's expression softened slightly. "Ambassador, humanity learned something important in our history. We learned it in fire and blood and sorrow. We learned that when someone calls for help, you answer, not because it's strategically wise, not because there's profit in it. You answer because it's right. But the cost." Zelthor gestured to the tactical display showing damaged human ships. "You lost so many." "We lost good people today," Chen acknowledged, her voice heavy, "and we'll honor them. But those 3 billion souls behind you? They're going home to their families because those good people stood in the gap. That's what Deathworlders do, Ambassador. We survive the unsurvivable, we fight the unbeatable, and we never ever leave people behind." As the human fleet began coordinating with refugee ships, Zelthor realized something profound. The Council had been wrong to fear humans. Or perhaps they'd been right to fear them, but for the wrong reasons. Humanity wasn't dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they were violently, unreasonably, impossibly hopeful. They looked at an unwinnable battle and saw a challenge. They heard a desperate plea from strangers and answered with everything they had. In the cold mathematics of galactic power, that made them the most dangerous species of all. Zelthor opened a new channel, this time to the Galactic Council. It was time they reconsidered their quarantine policy. The galaxy needed Deathworlders. It needed humans. Because when the darkness came calling, only humanity was crazy enough to punch back.